This time on Engine Masters, it is a big block Mopar cylinder head shootout of price versus power. Welcome to Engine Masters, where the big block Chrysler is the new small block Chevy or the new LS. What I mean is that we use them all the time. They're super popular around here, and I gotta tell you, if you ask the aftermarket, they are the most popular of the big block muscle car engines that are not Chevrolets. And because of that, there's a whole lot of cylinder heads on the market for them, and we're here to shoot out the price and power of the cylinder head models that are the easiest to install and that you'd be most likely to use on a typical street engine. So let's go through what those cylinder head choices are, and then I'm going to tell you all about the engine that we're going to be testing them on. First up, we've got the bone stock muscle car cylinder head, which is most commonly referred to as the 906. That's the last three digits of the casting number of that cast iron head. This is basically what you would find on any of the 383 or 440 engines throughout the muscle car era. Next up, we've got a cylinder head from a company called 440 Source. Then we've got the Edelbrock Performer RPM, and finally the Trick Flow Specialties, or TFS, 240cc CNC-ported cylinder head. Now, notably missing from this whole variety is going to be an offering from Indy cylinder heads. We just didn't have our hands on those, so if those are actually better, we'll have to catch up with them next time. For now, this is what you're going to see. Okay, let's talk about the specs on each one of these cylinder heads, starting with the cast iron 906. Let's talk valve size. Originally, these were 2.08 inches on the intake and 1.74 on the exhaust. On both the 440 Source and the Edelbrock, they've got valve sizes that are a common upgrade, which would be a 2.14 on the intake and a 1.81 on the exhaust. The TFS goes another way. They've got a larger 2.19 inch intake and a smaller 1.76 inch exhaust, a little bit bigger than stock, but smaller than the other two. Then we get into chamber sizes. On the stock 906 head, Dulcich tells me that he's cc'd stock ones as big as 92 cc's. I often cut them down to 84 or 85, so that's the range that you're looking at. The 440 Source head has 80 cc. The Edelbrock head, you can buy 88 cc or what we've got here, which is 75 cc. And then on the TFS, they go with a 78 cc. Now, the inlet runner, or the intake port size as measured in cc's, is a common judge of like how big a port is and how it might apply to your engine. I gotta be honest, I don't know what that number is on the 906. As far as advertised numbers for the aftermarket stuff, the 440 Source is 212, Edelbrock is 210, and the Trick Flow is a CNC-ported 240cc inlet runner. It's got a much taller valve in it, a lot of more area above the bowl, a longer radius in the thing, and so it's got a lot bigger intake runner on it. Now let me talk about the valve train hardware that we used here. We bought the base cylinder heads in every example with the cheapest spring package because we knew that we were going to upgrade them all with our own springs. We've got the very same model and part number of comp cam spring on every single aluminum cylinder head. I'm not certain what's on the 906, but the aluminums are all identical. So let's talk price on all of these. Once again, remembering that this is their lowest price for their cheapest spring package. I guess we got to start with the 906. How do you put a price on those? Well, I'll tell you that I recently took a set of my own heads that I had since way back when I was 19-year-old and had them rebuilt at a typical machine shop. And to clean them up, crack check them, valve job them, set the installed height, and sell me, I think, about 4 new valves. It was 350 bucks. So I'm gonna give that as the rough price if you had a set of 906 heads in your hand on what you would spend to actually get them dialed in. As a matter of fact, I had them milled for that as well. Next up price-wise is the most affordable aftermarket cylinder head here, which is the 440 Source unit. These are Chinese castings. They've been used since 2007. They've kind of been proven in the aftermarket, and the reason people love them is twofold. First, they're 995 bucks. For 2 cylinder heads for a big block, that's really good. The other neat thing about them is look how the casting appears just like a stock 906, or extremely similar. The other aftermarket heads look like they've been chopped topped with a bologna slicer on the end, so your engine's gonna look very aftermarket. These 440 sourcers, you could paint them and they will pass for stock, so that's very cool for $995. Moving up the chain, I've got the Edelbrock Performer RPM head. Now, this price is going to be from summitracing.com, and on the cheapest package that I could get on the Performer RPM at the time we were shooting this, they were $1,557.90. Now we're gonna go to the most expensive head of the entire Shootout, which is the TFS 240 CNC ported. And that, once again, at Summit, as of the time we were shooting this, for a pair of them was $2,038. For that, though, you're gonna get that bigger valve, you're gonna get CNC porting, a CNC chamber, it's got a much taller valve and lots more area above the bowl. We'll find out if that adds up to horsepower, which is the next thing that we're gonna do. So let me tell you about the engine that we're gonna run every single one of these heads on. This is the same 440 that Steve Dulcich had in his 1971 Dodge Charger RT since he was in high school. The specs of the engine, as we're going to baseline it in the test that's actually off camera with this iron head, is going to be a Holley 850 CFM XP carburetor and the old school Holley Street Dominator intake manifold. This engine has the old Speed Pro forged 6-pack pistons in it, and the camshaft is the custom one that we had made for earlier episodes. It is a Comp Cams hydraulic roller. The specs for duration at 50,000 tappet lift are 236 on the intake, 241 on the exhaust. It's got 545 thousandths of an inch lift, and the lobe separation angle is 108. The last thing you need to know is that we are running it with TTI headers. It is a 2-inch tube that steps up to a 2 1/8. So that's the combination on this particular 440, but remember that the Chrysler Dodge Plymouth Big Block platform originated in 1958 model year cars, and they stopped using them as they trickled towards the end in RVs in 1978. They made these things in displacements of 350 and 361. You're never gonna build one of those. Or 413, or a 426 Wedge, or the low deck 383, or 400, or of course the mighty 440. So this applies to all of those engines. No matter what you're building, you're gonna be able to take away some information on how you can make more power with it for the best bang for your buck. And the first thing that we're going to do is run the 440 source aluminum head, and then we will call up some data and compare it with the cast iron head, which we ran on an earlier day off camera. Here we go. Before we begin, I think we must acknowledge that the mullet is becoming majestic.
It was just my dream to look like Steve Dulcich, so.
Oh no, this is like if Robert Duvall was in Three Dog Night, right? Yeah. It's not what it would be.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I had someone send me a photo earlier, and it looked like the lead singer of Three Dog Night with a mustache.
So this is the same 6-pack motor that we ran against the Hemi that trampled the Hemi in the torque production.
Yeah.
It was better than expected, I would say.
But now we've got the single 4-barrel on it, and we're gonna do the Mopar head shootout, and these are the 440 source aluminum heads, which you have called stock 906 castings made out of aluminum, right?
Well, I don't know. They look like, that was the whole idea, was to resemble the stock head.
That's the best thing about them, in my opinion.
I know, because most aftermarket heads are flat milled front and back, so it just looks like a block of cement cinder block on top of your engine block. But these, I mean, they have the stylish pattern of a stock head.
Yeah, and the core plug on the end and everything. To me, that's like the coolest thing, is that they look stock.
You might not even know if you painted them orange.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it looks stock. I don't know how stock the ports are in design. Supposedly they're improved, and also it does have bigger valves than an OEM cylinder head. So, one more thing.
What?
Closed chambers.
Oh, for more compression than you would get with a 906 head.
And potentially quench depending on your piston deck height.
Right.
Yeah, so performance, we'll find out as soon as you fire up this engine.
I'm gone.
Okay, we made 519 pound-feet of torque and 481.2 horsepower, which doesn't really mean much to me. It's just kind of numbers. We want to have a look at the difference between a stock cast iron Mopar 906 casting head with a good valve job versus the 440 source aluminum head. And so here we go from a prior day. Boom.
Okay.
In red is the iron head, and in black is the 440 source head, and it's a nice gain, actually. So the 440 source aluminum head that we just ran made 519.3 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM and 481.2 horsepower at 5,500. Our earlier test from a different day reveals that the 906 casting stock iron head made 513.9 pound-feet of torque at 3,700 RPM, and the horsepower was 462.5 at 5,600 RPM. So the iron head that we're looking at here at an 85cc chamber, which gave this engine 9.57 to 1 compression ratio. Same thing we tested against the Hemi earlier on. These 440 source heads are 80cc, so it's 9.99 to 1. So that's a 0.42 to 1 increase in compression that we saw by adding the 440 source aluminum heads. But I did math on that too. From our prior testing, we decided that in this compression ratio range, we're calling about a 3% gain in power for every increase in 1 point.
That's a rule of thumb.
It's a rule of thumb.
That's fair.
It's an ish.
Yeah.
So 3 times 0.42 is 1.26. Multiply that times the power that we were making with this thing, and I can attribute roughly 5.4 horsepower of this change to compression ratio rather than to the difference in the cylinder head.
I think what we're seeing down here is potentially due to some of the compression ratio change, where the flow requirements aren't quite the same. I mean, it doesn't show us head efficiency really, so it could be attributed to some of that too, but it does have a larger valve. So this is kind of a characteristic divergence of the power curve when you look at flow ability.
Airflow.
Well, and the other thing, which I'm going to repeat like my defense argument that I made at the opening of the show in front of you guys, which is, yes, these cylinder heads have different chamber sizes. And so we're not just testing airflow, we're testing the compression ratio difference. But if you've got a 440 in the car and you remove a set of stockers and install a set of these heads, that's one of the benefits that they give you, is more compression ratio. They might take your motorhome 440 from 7.4 to 1 to 7.48 to 1. You don't know, right?
Yahoo.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's a fair comparison of red with the iron head, black with the 440 source aluminum
I think that's
head.
a significant improvement. I mean, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they're good. I like them. What's next?
The Edelbrock head and the highest compression ratio with a 75cc chamber. So let's go rip these off and install the Edelbrocks.
Okay.
Here's another change that we just made between these two heads is that the Edelbrocks are angle plugs. They're like this. The 440 source that we just took off and the stock heads both have straight plugs. They come in at an angle like that. Really, I think that's more of a consideration for header clearance than it is for performance on these things, but it is a change, so I thought I'd tell you. There you go. Boom. Missed 500 by that much.
Boy, it made more torque though. Did you see that?
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did. Looking forward to seeing the numbers. Interesting, I'm already doing math and stuff.
Calculator already, huh?
Yeah. 529.8 pound-feet of torque, and then 498.1 horsepower, which is distinctly not 500.
Oh.
Yeah.
Round it up, round it up.
It's pretty much 500. So we have to know, I would say first overlay it with the 440 source head.
Whoa.
Wow. At first I was going to say it doesn't diverge, but it does. It's tighter down here than it is up there. Once again, an improvement in airflow. You might not have heard me telling Steve, we raised the compression ratio again by 0.47 to 1, so another half point basically.
And I think that's where this is, but then it also, the added flow is carrying it up there. So it really laid out just exactly as you had described it.
For entertainment, can you pull up our graph of what we did earlier with the 906 cast iron head?
Sure.
Wow, so you just exactly see the stepped improvement on how much do you want to spend, how fast do you want to go. Blue line's 906 heads, red lines are the 440 source, the black line is where we're at right now with the Edelbrock.
It really adds up.
Yeah.
Right?
And the other thing I'll say is that these with the smallest chamber of the bunch at 75cc are an even bigger benefit to somebody who's dealing with a motorhome engine.
Yes.
Yeah. They would give, I think, an even bigger percentage of gain on something where you're jumping the compression from 7.5 to 1 to 8 to 1 than this where you're jumping it from 9.99 to 1 to 10.46 to 1.
You know, Edelbrock just needs to make one that's 50 cc's for the motorhome engine specifically.
The motorhome market is just ripe for the tapping, man. I've created that market. Get on that aftermarket. Next change is going to be more interesting because this is a 210cc inlet runner. Now we're going to put on the Trick Flow heads, which are a 240 with a much taller area above the bowl. All right, so let's get in there and throw the TFS heads on.
Ooh,
okay, go ahead.
All right. Not exactly where I thought it would go, but improved.
Yeah.
2.6 horsepower short of my estimate, but not bad. We made 539 pound-feet of torque, and the horsepower was not 525 as I'd hoped, but 522.4.
No, this is good stuff. This is an excellent 440. How can you scoff anything about this engine? It's just really pretty good.
Well, because it doesn't have enough cam, and because I'm not seeing the comparison of the Edelbrock head, which is what I want to see.
Never happy.
Oh, wow.
Ah, boy.
That is a much bigger change versus airflow than what we've seen in the other ones. In other words, there's no airflow demand right here. Its engine's probably happy with the Edelbrock up till we get to 4,000 RPM, and then the TFS is making a bunch more.
Yeah.
We don't normally see this until there's kind of a bigger change in cylinder head size, but look what it did here as well.
Oh.
We saw it lose just a touch at the bottom.
The black line here is the Trick Flow head, which is a 240cc inlet runner, and it's much larger than the 210 that's on the Edelbrock, which is the red line. And so the larger port's actually losing a little bit of torque below 3,500 RPM, but once again, destroying the Edelbrock at every point above 4,000.
But it's supposed to. I mean, it's a much, much bigger head, probably intended for different purposes, and it's CNC ported, and it's kind of got all the stuff.
CNC chamber, bigger valves, exactly. Price-wise, this head, the Trick Flow, would be $480 more than the Edelbrocks.
Okay.
So for $480, you're getting a big chunk of meat right there.
No, we've spent more for less.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Can you go ahead and call up all the cylinder heads here one at a time? So let's do the Edelbrock, and then we'll pull up the stock one too and just see how far we've come. Wow, there you go. It's almost like the same gain each time. It's just like how much cash are you gonna shell out and how much power do you wanna make? And by the way, we just went over all of that data. I should tell you that off camera, we went through that process of testing out the ignition timing again, and basically it is what it is. It's not gonna give me that 525 horsepower that I wanted. It wants 36 to 38 degrees of total ignition timing, and that's it. I actually think it's awesome that there are this many options at this many price points for whatever you wanna do on your big block Mopar. Because I've got 440s where I would just go ahead and save the money, and I would spend half what I would spend on the TFS heads by buying the 440 source heads, because I don't need all the power, they look better, and they're $995 instead of whatever these were, you know, $2,038. I guess my last takeaway is honestly, also sort of aftermarket pitch man, the Edelbrock head ends up being better than I assumed it was walking in the door. I think you had a better clue about that than I did. Actually, you did too. I didn't think they would carry 600 horsepower. I think they will.
The thing I like about the Edelbrock is the packaging.
Yeah,
it's basically all stock architecture.
Done.
It's just there, boom, done. I just picked up, 30 horsepower or whatever.
So in conclusion, I guess there's no reason to ever rebuild a 906 head unless you really only want to spend $300 on your heads instead of $995, which gets you a pretty good 440 source head. And if you want to make more power than that and have more potential for the future, there's the Edelbrock. And if you're willing to step up and spend yet another $500 or $600 and spend $2,000 and get TFS heads, then you're almost unlimited as to what you can do in the future as far as a stroker kit on your 440 or whatever.
Right.
Mopar guys gotta love you. You always tackle this stuff with cylinder heads and just give so much information on the big block stuff that isn't normally out there.
These days, there isn't that much information out there of people actually testing the stuff. All you can find is, you never want to go more than 210 on a street 440. Wrong! No. Proving guys wrong. Every single time on the show we love to do that we call Engine Masters.
Running wild in the neon glow, heartbeat pounding fast and low, electric sparks beneath my skin. This is the